Friday, and it's Bring It In with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you?
Warm. I'm warm. It's only 68 degrees or something here. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, you and Judy enjoying the Florida weather down there. Judy at an undisclosed location. We won't tell you where she is. It is not warm up here in New York City, but it's not as cold as it was all week. I think it's like 40-something degrees right now, which this time of year, balmy. So,
but how are those Knicks fans feeling right now?
Let me tell you about Knicks fans right now, Coach. They are, it's called heaven. They are excited because they now have Cam Reddish acquired from the Atlanta Hawks. They traded him they traded Kevin Knox and a draft pick in order to get him. And there's a conditional pick from Brooklyn that gets conveyed as well. Now, Coach, the Knicks have 2/3 of a famed trio that played basketball down in a town called Durham, North Carolina, for a school called Duke University. You may have heard of them. And now that they have 2/3 of this famous trio, the question on everybody's mind is, when will the third member of that famed Duke trio, one Zion Williamson, join them in New York on the Knicks? We're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's talk about the move. What do you think about Cam Reddish? I like him. I think he's got a lot of talent. I wonder about if Thibodeau's the right guy to bring it out of him, but I like that he has an opportunity now because he'll get playing time on the Knicks, and they need a wing scorer.
You said something before the show about is Thibodeau the right guy to coach him? I think you're right, first of all, in that clearly he's very talented. He's I guess he's a McDonald's All-American. I mean, anyone going to Duke clearly can play in terms of as a prospect. But I'm reminded, though, it made me think of something that happened a couple of days ago where my brother was in town to see my ailing father, and we were looking at some wedding pictures on the wall, and they've got all their kids' wedding pictures. And my brother Mike and I are looking at it. My wife is looking at we were the first weddings. I'm the oldest, back in 1990. And I'm just going to paraphrase, but basically she was saying, like, I don't know what I saw in David when I married him back then. It's worked out well. 31 years, and I think she still likes me very much, but she looked like a damn princess. I did not look like a princess. What's important, though, is what ended up happening. Right? We are happily married for a long time. That's what really matters. That's why your point about Thibodeau is so good, Jarod. Ken Reddish is a very sexy looking idea, super athletic, long. He looked good in the postseason. Lottery pick, McDonald's All-American, blah, 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 buddies with RJ. So that's good for culture. And we know the Knicks value that. They didn't used to, they do now, which is great. But what really matters is what's going to look like in 5 years and 10 and so forth. So I don't know. You said to me, you said before, you're going to watch closely. I think you won't be alone in that. I think it's a smart move. They gave up Kevin Knox, who I know is a very talented player and likely is never going to get a chance really to show what I thought he could do when he first came out. It didn't work well for New York, and it's Kevin's fault as much as anyone's, of course. But let's just see how they're going to do Cam and RJ together.
Yes.
There's some other veteran dudes that don't give a fuck about any brotherhood. Damn sure don't give a fuck about Duke. They got their own thing going on. Obi Toppin's got talent.
Obi's so good.
So what's going to happen with that mix? I know the Knicks feel like they want to build a family and everyone cares about each other. And so if this helps that because of the connection between RJ and Cam, great. But the rest of the league's going to try to crush them. Like, we'll see what happens. We don't know yet. It's a mystery.
No, you're right, Coach. And I kind of want to stay there for a minute. Look, Tibbs and Devin pointed this out, and everyone knows this. Shout out, Devin. Thank you for saying this. Tibbs and young guys is not really a thing, right? Which is why Tibbs leads on Taj Gibson, Derrick Rose, right? All these quote unquote known commodities, right? Okay, well, that's cool and all, right? Like, because you kind of know what you're going to get. They're smart, high IQ, but this is not an old man's league, right? It's a young man's league, and it's getting younger, right? And you need to weather the mistakes of an Obi Toppin and an RJ Barrett to see ultimately what you're going to have. Because to me, it's like you're shackling thoroughbreds, right? It's like you got to let them run, butt their head up, because they're going to screw up. That's what young players do, particularly now as a Knicks team when you're realizing that the East is better. We are not going to be a 4 or 5 seed like we were last year. That ain't happening. We're lucky if we get in the play-in, right? So if that's the case, and that's a philosophy change that has to come from Thibodeau, which, I mean, how often do leopards change their spots? Literally never, right? Especially at this stage of his career. it would behoove them to allow those guys to play, make mistakes, and see what you have with Quickly, with RJ, with Grimes, with Toppin, with all those guys, and let them kind of play. Then you can build, because the culture is there now. You can move some of those older guys out and let that team run towards the future. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
You know, you said lepers don't change their spots. I'm not going to push back on that because I think you're right, and almost universally. But we have seen people change. There's a famous story. I sorry to bring politics into this, but I think it's relevant. When Egypt had beat Israel in it was called the Yom Kippur War. They attacked on Yom Kippur. I think it was 1973, and won back some land. In a speech he gave, which was more conciliatory about trying to create peace between them and Israel, he referenced like "you people of September," which is when the war took place, countless times. And my point is, when you really win big, that's when you actually can make some progress to change. We talked laughingly the other day about Nick Saban, Alabama, who I know was, I mean, I spoke to people in his world who fucking hated him way back when he was at Michigan State, first going to Alabama. And I think he really has changed. I'm not a huge fan or whatever, but like he was arguing for vaccines and masks in the South in Alabama when no one else really was. Fucking that coach at Florida, now fired. He was arguing against all that shit. Yep. So when you have great success, you do have a chance to make some kind of progress. Tibbs hasn't done that in New York. He had a couple good years in Chicago where they didn't even make the NBA Finals, and I guess LeBron in Miami. I know all that. So it's a challenge. Can he? And Judy, if you're still there, you can show the Fred Katz tweet. New York does not have a history of developing first-round picks into guys that stick around. Now, that's not all Thibodeau's fault. He wasn't even there until a couple years ago. But the last number one pick, first-round pick to get a second contract was Charlie Ward in 1994 when he was drafted. And
Charlie Ward was a better quarterback than he was a basketball player, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's the city. That's bad ownership. That's bad management, all combined to not have a very good environment for young players to grow and deal with the mistakes they're going to make, was they all going to make. That's a problem. Now they've got RJ, he's on track to get another contract. He's not on track to be a max player. He might be, but we haven't seen that guy yet. He's been a little bit worse this year. Now they have a second one, and they have Obi Toppin in year two.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Year two? Yeah. So it's hard to keep track of the pandemic of when these guys got drafted.
What's year 1 and 2?
Yeah, it's all the same thing now.
All the same,
man. But okay, now they got 3 guys that they got to make sure. And so now, if you've got Reddish and RJ and Obi Toppin, and I don't know if any of them are all-stars, but they can be good basketball players. And New York can attract the all-stars to put with good, athletic, energetic basketball players. There's the makings of something there. To your original point, I don't know. I would argue Thibodeau probably isn't the answer, but we're going to find out this year.
Yeah. Right? We'll find out very quickly this year, because right now, Coach, we are at the halfway mark of the season. Just about every team's played 41 games, give or take. If they haven't yet, they will by the end of this weekend, most likely. From now through the end of the season until game 82, we'll see. If those guys get minutes and run, we'll know. If they don't, I have to question, if you're Knicks, like, is Thibodeau the right guy? Because what are we doing here? Grinding more of these old vets in, like, to do what? To eke out the 10 or 9 spot to do a plan? For what purpose? Right? What we want long-term success, and we're going to get to my favorite team in a little while about getting young guys and building long-term success. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is more young guys. Zion Williamson. All the talk's happening, right? 2/3 of the brotherhood's here. All we need is Zion, and now we got 3, and we're cooking with gas. First, is it realistic for the Knicks to think they can get Zion Williamson?
I mean, they don't have any trade pieces that would be good enough, or even draft picks that are good enough. Zion is an MVP level talent. It would have to take a real movement by Team Zion to get involved. We saw how hard it was to trade Anthony Davis. Obviously, Zion has that kind of upside, but certainly hasn't played at that level because he's only barely played a season. I see a crash and burn scenario. I've even talked to Henry about this. I'm not good enough to write this, but Henry probably is. Like, what happens if the Pelicans have to move off of Zion? If it just turns out that they just are, they have irreconcilable differences and have to make a move. And I'm not suggesting we don't know yet. We know we supposedly he's hurt. I don't know what I believe anymore. But if they can't keep Zion happy after losing AD after they made the playoffs, you can't keep a team in New Orleans. That has major ramifications on the future of the league. You've got to move that team to Seattle or Vegas, I would guess. So there's a lot of things. If New York is seen as stealing Zion, that the ownership in New Orleans got to say we're out. But all these other small markets get involved. We're talking about a cataclysmic event in the NBA if all that happens. I think
you are dead on there. There's a couple things at play. One, the Bensons would likely probably want to sell. Two, the Pelicans rank behind LSU football, the Saints, LSU football, LSU baseball, right?
Jazz Fest.
They're
Mardi Gras.
They're like number 8 in things to do in
Cafe Du Monde,
right, exactly. So I mean that's a problem. So like they did move to Seattle. The Anthony Davis thing does matter that they couldn't keep him happy there. The other piece is we talked about this last week. The secrecy around the Zion injury, the fact that he's rehabbing in Portland, not in New Orleans. Like there's none of this sounds good, right? So the idea is, would he leave, right? We know that this summer he will become extension eligible. Of course, because he's been all NBA. He was all NBA last year, wasn't he? At 13? Either way,
he's an MVP level player.
Either way, he is going to get the rookie max extension, right? Somewhere in the north of $200 million. He would have to be the first person to turn that down to then get into restricted free agency and then not take the qualifying offer and then do all that jazz. Can that happen? I mean, anything's possible. I'm not the one who's going to sit here and say, oh, that could never happen. Anything is possible. Putting aside all that money, would Jordan Brand and Nike have to get involved with saying, all right, we get you to New York, we'll give you some money in the upfront. Who knows? A lot of pieces have to move. But if that would happen, it would take a lot of movement behind the scenes, a lot of Machiavellian things going on. And I think, to your point, Coach, that would be bad for a New Orleans franchise, and they'd have to move the team for sure, because that's terrible.
So think about what we're talking about here. We have a New York team they couldn't figure it out with Kevin Knox fine. Now they've tried Cam Reddish. Zion's got his issues in New Orleans. I don't know if he's in Portland. We think he is. I was told he's in Portland, but I've not confirmed it. My source is very good, but I don't know where he is. He ain't hanging out with the Pelicans.
No.
We know that. Now we have a situation I wrote about today in Atlanta. Another bunch of young guys, to your point about Thibodeau. Now Nate McMillan's with the Hawks. This guy's a defensive guy, and they don't guard anybody.
Yeah.
They're not hustling. They're 28th in the league in defense overall. I broke down some film where their efforts in getting back on defense, Trae Young specifically, Bogdanovich, Gallinari, is just fucking pathetic. Pathetic effort, lack of effort in competitive games. First quarter of competitive games against the Lakers in this particular game. Last night they got rolled. They're getting rolled a lot. They've given 130, I think 7 times. They're 0 for 7 in those games. It is not easy to coach a bunch of young guys. The Hawks have a good mix. Like what's happening there is really bad.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's indicative of management. We're going to get to this later too, when we talk about Portland a little bit. Management, coaching, young players, the mix with veterans, the guys that know how to put it all together and brew it all up, or the girls too, if we had that, great, because the ones that don't, they stand like a sore thumb just as badly.
Yeah. And to your point, like there's no guarantee that if that were to happen, right, that's going to be any kind of great bouillabaisse in New York City with those three, because that franchise has shown us that they don't. We showed the graphic. No rookie's gotten to a second deal since Charlie Ward. Like, I mean, that's problematic. So
it's incredible.
So Knick fans, get excited, I guess, if you want about Zion, but let's work on developing RJ first and Cam and your other young guys and see where you're going. You talked about the Hawks, and I'm going to say this again, Coach, because it bears repeating. Coach's wonderful article up today about the Hawks racing downhill. Make sure you guys check that out. Trae Young is a big part of the problem on this team, right? And you brought up highlights of a video of him not running back on defense, clearly not giving effort on that end of the floor. And I am convinced it ties back into the comments he made to start the season when he said, It is hard to get up for the regular season after what we accomplished. Yo, dude, you are 23 years old. You didn't accomplish shit. Like, you got to one conference finals last year. Congrats, right? As in most NBA players won't get that far, but you got to do that repeatedly, right? It's the consistency. And when your leader and your star player has that mindset, well, of course it's natural. The rest of the dudes are going to, right? They follow suit. You hear every team say it, coach. If a team comes out and plays well, such and such set the tone for us tonight, right? When they do it, oh shit, we're all doing it now, right? Pat Bev in the bubble. If LeBron says we're doing X, we're doing X, right? When the main dude says this is how it's going to go, everyone else will follow. When the main dude's like, regular season not really up for it. Of course the rest of it, and there's no veteran in that locker room that can be like Trey. That ain't it, my guy. That's not the way. So the Reddish trade was a thing they probably had to do eventually, but I think their poor play pushed that timeline up a little bit. But that isn't going to solve their problem, right? They've got to get back to guarding at least at an average level, as you pointed out in the piece, in order to get themselves back on track.
Have you ever seen the movie with Steve Martin, Parenthood?
Mm-hmm.
There's that great scene towards the end where things are just really dramatic, and the grandma tells Steve Martin that she doesn't understand why people like the merry-go-round. It just goes round and round. I like the roller coaster, which is as Judy would tell you, Parenthood is very much like a roller coaster. But I quickly, I don't know, at some point in the early 90s, I kind of used that line and twisted it. I've said this before in the show. Everyone likes roller coasters. I don't. But in theory, everyone likes roller coasters. They're thrilling. They're exciting. Of course, Trey likes the postseason. The downs hurt, but make the ups feel that much better. But I've always told my players, get off the roller coaster. Life already is a roller coaster. And find joy in the merry-go-round. Yes, it just goes round and round. But that's what life is. And that's what life in this league is. Every day, grind it, lock in, find joy in it. And I did not know or remember that Trae Young said that, Jarod, but holy cow, I think you're right. That's devastating. Devastating. You don't got a choice, bro. No choice. The Milwaukee Bucks, who we'll mention in a minute, yes, they play a little better when the competition's at its fiercest. Mm-hmm. But unlike Atlanta, they actually did win the championship.
Yes, correct.
And they still are 10 games on 500, whatever it is, with Drew Holiday being out and Middleton getting sick and all of that. Like, they're doing just fine. They're not getting smoked out and given 137 different times. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. That is problematic.
Yeah.
Wake the fuck up, Trey.
Yeah.
And start caring about defense. Even if you care, you're just going to be average to bad,
which is fine.
But you won't be right. You won't be terrible.
Right.
And then the other guys got to pick up their slack. But now we've got what is it? John Collins.
Yeah.
Talking out, and now he might get traded. They just traded Cam Reddish. Yeah. When I started writing this piece, Cam Reddish was still on the team.
Yeah.
And in fact, I ended the piece. It's been edited out, which is fine. But I ended the piece about in the piece I mentioned that the guy that Franz Klammer beat to win the 76 gold, a guy from Switzerland said you could feel the earth shake. The mountain was shaking with all the Austrian fans cheering on their local hero. And I wrote in the piece that the next thing you're going to hear and feel in Atlanta, if things don't change, is the sound of moving trucks. I fucking nailed it, because a day later, trust me, Henry already had this piece editing it when they traded Cam Reddish. Like, this was going to happen. And Travis Schlenk mentioned, I quoted him.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably not done. Like, Kevin Knox isn't the answer.
No, definitely.
They're not done.
That's a piece to me moves. I thought, Coach, great minds think alike, because we were on the same page. Before the Reddish deal, I did a podcast Tuesday night. And I said, if your name is not Trae Young in Atlanta, better call the movers and start packing boxes, because listen, you might be out of here, people. Sure enough, Reddish first domino to fall. And John Collins has said, this isn't new that John Collins sort of, like, I don't want to use disgruntled because that makes him sound like a bad dude, but sort of unhappiness with how the team is playing, right? He's like, I can do a lot more for this team, and we collectively need to do better. He's going short of calling out Trey is really what he wants to do. That's the person he wants to call out, but you can't do that politically because that's suicide. You're definitely asking yourself to get moved. But that's his issue. He's like, I need you to do better things. Try, give us effort, do stuff here. You can't just dominate the ball the whole time. give it up, cut, you'll get it back. Like, but I don't know.
Was it Shakespeare who said heavy is the head that wears the crown?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Trey's got that crown on and it's getting heavy and it's wearing him down.
You find out when you get the keys to the franchise and you got the rookie max extension and you're the guy. It's all the glitz and glamour side of it is wonderful. This is the work part now, right? Like you gotta, and it's hard, man. You got to keep the locker room together, and that piece, and you grow into that as a leader. That piece isn't there yet for him right now. No. And despite their fantastic run last year, everybody was excited. The talent is there. We see it. For Travis to go on the radio, coach, and say, I don't know if I should have brought these guys all back together. We got two opportunities, the draft and the trade deadline. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like what GM says that?
That's a 5-alarm fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, I would not be surprised if Collins and other guys get moved and they just, something's got to change there. But, look, it's hard to win in this league. We talk about it all the time. Really, really hard. And the Hawks are realizing that, listen, it isn't as easy as y'all think it is. Last night, coach, the Milwaukee Bucks put the hurting on the Golden State Warriors. I mean, they came out from minute one. I think it was like 8-0. It was like, oh my God, this is like, and then they romped. It was one of the more poor defensive games for Golden State. You give them a little bit of snack. You're not going to play elite defense all 82 games. Like this.
And Draymond didn't play, right?
And Draymond didn't play. You're going to, things happen. But Milwaukee showed again, when the big teams come to town, their antennas up. And coach, that is the mark of a team that clearly has won a championship, but also knows they're getting to that moment where they know how to ratchet it up when they need to. We said it last year when they won. All the pieces of their important people work. They're all in their prime. This could be a team that wins 3 of the next 5, whatever, goes on a run. And you still like them to be title favorites this year. And I'm sure a lot of what was what you saw last night.
Yeah, I actually thought this, before the game, by the time I put the game on, it's like we went over to my parents' house and my wife and I had a little date night and they were already up 30 something. And I thought, oh man. And then I looked up and I saw Draymond wasn't playing, which I thought was the case before. Back to the Trae Young thing, connecting to this now, not only has Milwaukee won a championship, I think they've been the top seed twice, right? Twice?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Best record twice.
So they've clearly proven how to win in the regular season too. Atlanta's done neither. Neither. They were a 5 seed last year. Mm-hmm. So Milwaukee does know how to do this. And Drew didn't play. And that's I mean, if they had lost the game, you would have said, well, they're missing the world's best perimeter defensive player to go up against Steph Curry. But they still found a way to win without him and win easily. I like what Bud said. We're building good habits. This guy knows what he's talking about. This is a team that's going to, if they're healthy and you beat them, you're going to have to play great because they're going to play well. They're going to time this up right. They're the Olympic athlete they know when to peak. Mm-hmm. They're picking their spots now. They're still playing hard normally. Giannis, we saw Giannis last year was a top 5 player ever when he needed to be. It doesn't mean he can do it every game. We'll see. Jordan did it pretty much every game. LeBron pretty much every game. That's why the top 5, Magic, Kareem. Giannis has it. Let's just see if he continues it. But it looks that way now. And I think Golden State's flawed enough. Phoenix, to me, is my favorite in the West. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a rematch in the finals as it stands today. And I like Utah. I love Utah. I don't trust Quinn in the postseason. So I like Phoenix, Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee has the better advantage in that matchup. And so, yeah, for right now, I still think those 2 teams make it and Milwaukee wins.
Milwaukee, they play with this kind of purpose that you see every night, right? Yeah. And they're getting contributions from everywhere. Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen, like all these, and DiVincenzo's back now. And again, when that roster's whole and letting Giannis play at center, which, listen, when he's attacking the paint, ain't nobody guarding that dude. Not a soul. He's just too big and strong and athletic. You got nothing. He gets his feet in the paint. I mean, either get out of the way because he's scoring anyway, or if you foul him, make sure the ball doesn't go in. And I don't think anyone's strong enough to do that. It's probably going to go in anyway. Right. So I just, listen, you can wall it off, make him shoot jumpers, I guess. Right. Like that's
well, so if we can wave a magic wand, and I could tell you, Jarod, that in the Eastern Conference semis or finals, because I don't know where these teams are going to finish seating wise, it's going to be Milwaukee, Brooklyn. Sign us up, right? Sign us up. 7-game series last year. A 1 inch kept Milwaukee from from not advancing or advancing. And let's not discount the Heat. We'll talk about more of them towards the end. But if we can get those two teams, preferably in the conference finals, it'd be great if
for sure.
They're a 1-2 or or I guess 1-4 maybe or 1-3, because that's going to be a hell of a series.
Oh, without question. Remember, Brooklyn was the only team to beat Milwaukee 3 times in the postseason last year, right? Like no other team did that. So, and I'm still, because I've seen enough of it, even though it's been a small sample size, 16 games. When those 3 dudes in Brooklyn are on the court playing, it creates problems for you defensively, no matter how good you are, because you have to change a lot of philosophy, right? Because they're already so great individually, one-on-one, breaking you down. And when they start doing the Kyrie off-ball cuts and people start panicking, I watch it. I watch defenses panic. They're like, shit, who? And you're not leaving Durant, like, right? And I see teams mistake, and it's like, oh crap. And then once you're in scramble mode, it's tough, right? So that team, and in playoffs, those sort of wing guys who can just get buckets, we know they matter so much. They got 3 of them, right? Like that's very helpful. So that would be a hell of a series. We hope we definitely see that. But Milwaukee, again, I love what I'm seeing out of them. I'd love to see a Milwaukee Brooklyn conference finals in the East, and in the West. Well, we'll get to the Grizzlies a little later. Something interesting, Coach. New York City has an executive order number 225, that is a loophole that would allow Kyrie Irving to play in home games. What that loophole basically is for performers. If the entity in which that performer works for is willing to pay fines, it would work. Here's how the fine system would work. First time, it's a warning. Next offense, 1,000. Third offense, 2, then 5, right? And 5 is the cap. There are 20 home games remaining for the Brooklyn Nets. If you use that math and add it all up, the Brooklyn Nets would have to pay about $88,000 in fines to let Kyrie Irving play basketball. Now, $88,000 to the everyman, it's a lot of money. $88,000 to Joe Tsai, whose net worth is $8.8 billion, wouldn't even notice it missing. Kyrie Irving, whose contract is $180 million or whatever, wouldn't notice it missing. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do this because the appetite currently isn't there. But, Coach, I think what we've seen through this pandemic is not just from athletes, when the leagues who run these, the people who run the leagues, coaches, everybody, etc. This ain't about morals, right? They want to keep this train moving, making all the money possible. And for an owner like Joe Tsai, it's about winning. He sees that blowout of the Chicago Bulls the other night, and he's like, what the hell? These guys got to play. I don't know how long this window is going to be open for these 3 dudes. I would not be surprised that come All-Star, post-All-Star break, all of a sudden we start seeing little whispers like, okay, the Nets may be willing to go on the, take these fine hits and pay to let Kyrie Irving play basketball. Now, it'll look terrible from a PR standpoint and all that, but I mean, in this news cycle we have, Coach, that story will last for what? A couple days at most. Something else will happen. Everybody will forget about it, and it's back to business. So
you hit all of the subjects right. I don't think the Nets can pay it because it's a cap issue.
So it have to be Kyrie.
You mentioned Kyrie's. It's nothing to Kyrie either. So they can afford it. And I think you nailed it on the head. The PR hit is going to be significant, and then it'll be trashed a couple of days later, on the bottom of someone's birdcage. They'll get, especially if they're winning. Especially if they're winning.
Winning cures all, as you know.
Yeah, they'll gloss right over it. It's a shame. I also wonder too. I know that our friend Dr. Ron Sen posted on Facebook the other day that COVID and wastewater is plummeted, which is it's a very good indicator. It was ratcheting up a month ago before, and then we knew it was coming. Well, now it's here, but it's starting to come down a little bit. I almost wonder if the Nets are thinking, you know what, let's just wait a month. If we start seeing numbers drop, maybe they'll even drop some of these rules and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. I doubt they dropped the mandate in New York City. I don't think they'll do that, but I think I don't think that'll happen. But I do think, to your point,
even by April,
don't think maybe, but they'll have to see a sharp decline in numbers for them to do that. Like,
but
really
they have in Boston, but to your point, I think you're exactly right. I think they'll wait a little bit longer, and then you'll start hearing stories because they're gonna leak it first to kind of get everyone's appetite, to get more accommodated to the idea, and let the people bitch and moan and whatever, and the more liberal sites, of which I'm happy to follow and read, but they'll bitch and moan about it. Conservatives will champion the idea of paying, of course they will, but that helps soften the blow when he actually does play.
Yes,
and they pay the fine.
Yes.
And those things will start happening, I think.
Coach, guys, we just gave you the master class on how these things happen. What Coach just broke, that's exactly how media and work. We leak it, they leak it first to get everybody but then what actually ends up happening is you get used to the idea because all you're doing is hearing everybody talk about it for weeks on end. So by the time it happens, it's like, oh, it's fine. And look, ultimately, let's not pretend that there are morals in sports, right? Joe Tsai can be as pro-vaccine and everything and he is, right? But I mean, you really want to get into what your company does in mainland China? If we really want to talk about morals, my guy, like, okay, let's right. So ultimately, he wants to win. And guess what? As the owner of his franchise, I don't blame you or begrudge you for wanting to win. And you know your team is better when all three of those dudes are playing ball. So I get it. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the part of the show where I talk about the best team in basketball, not the best team, but my favorite team in basketball.
Right now they are.
the Memphis Grizzlies. Great game last night against Minnesota. Watched that on League Pass. They're just doing so many fun things and they're having fun playing ball together. And in any situation, Coach, it never looks like they're rattled or worried. All right. Even if they're down, guys, we got to turn it up. And they all, it's like a weird college thing. And I'm not all of this kumbaya stuff, but every time they're in these kind of like negative modes, they kind of all huddle together. And next thing you know, 6-0 run, 8-0 run. You're like, what the hell just happened? What'd you say in that huddle? Right. It's wonderful to see, of course, led by John Morant, but they're getting contributions up and down the roster. We'll talk about John Conchar in a little bit. What are you seeing when you are watching the Memphis Grizzlies?
So first of all, Jarod, you just make me laugh because you act as if you're not really into the whole kumbaya thing. I think it's an act. I really do. I think you're super loving. You're an amazing teammate. And when I know you'd have if someone comes after me on Twitter, you'd have my back 1,000%.
I'm not even reading the tweet. I'm just firing off. I'm just shooting. I'm shooting right away.
Right. Because we do the same for you. And so it just makes me laugh. I tell you what's going on for the Grizzlies. They got freaking John Morant. He is just an extraordinary player. I'm happy to say that I didn't really pay attention when he was in college, but pretty clearly to me anyway. I don't remember when I tweeted this, but when I tweeted out that the West better get used to Luka versus Morant in like the Western Conference Finals because those two guys are amazing. I still feel that way, and Dallas is playing good too now as well. But man, Desmond Bane is so. I know we've talked about him before, but he's a ball handler. Like he's a basketball player and a brilliant shooter. So Joe Harris, like how much is Joe Harris getting paid?
Oh God, Joe's making almost 30 million. He's making a lot.
Second round pick also. Hello, teams. Like there's nothing wrong with really good shooters that aren't going to win dunk contests.
Who
know how to play and are tough as nails. Joe Harris is, first of all, he's a pretty good athlete. When he was coming out of college, tough as hell, played at Virginia, great defensive program. Desmond Bane, same kind of story. But I also think their coach is very good.
He is.
I think Taylor Jenkins I'm not saying he's Eric Spoelstra, but he could one day be like, this guy seems to know how to coach and not just manage, which I think some coaches do. He's actually interacting and making changes and demanding more of his players and giving guys chances. I wrote in our script here last night, John Conchar had a really big game. Like it was a really big deal. And he had a big three to kind of ice the game for his team. Man, I watched John Conchar play in the G League a couple years ago. He's all right. Yeah, he was all right, pretty good. Like I was really surprised that he was an NBA roster moving down. He was okay. He's found a way to make a difference for his team when his team's needed. I mean, he wasn't playing a lot. Now he is. There's a whole bunch of those guys out there. You have got to develop them. Yeah. You've got to give them a role. You've got to let them flourish in that role and let them fail in that role and just keep working their way around it. And as your stars carry the team, the other guys got to do their thing and know what they're supposed to do. They've got to feel a part of it. This is where John Collins is upset. I almost think, well, first of all, what am I doing? I've not even mentioned Triple J.
Oh, well, we'll get to him.
I trusted you on that. He's coming also. So yeah, if you're looking at how old is he now? Is he 21 or 22?
Triple J's 22.
Okay. So what team has the best 22 and under duo in the world? I think it's got to be Memphis. Am I wrong?
No, you are not wrong at all. Look, what I'm loving out of this Memphis team, and Judy, if you can pull that tweet back up again about the Grizzlies during this streak in terms of threes, not hitting threes and whatever, and why they're able to.
Grizzlies stay rolling, yeah.
Yeah. So start of the. Is that it? No, it's this one. The Grizzlies have won 11 straight games, and in that streak, they're 29th in three-pointers and made, 23rd in three-point percentage, and 29th in free throw percentage. Listen, you know why that is happening? Why they're still able to win? You watch these games, Coach. And I think you put the stat maybe in an article or somewhere, or I looked at it on NBA.com. Deflections and steals. Yeah. They get their hands on everything. Every ball, it's mine. And when you get Ja and Bane and Jarod in the trail 3 spot, like it's chaos, right? And it's like, oh, who am I covering? Who am I picking up? Dunks at the rims, wide open shot in the corner, or rebound, tip in. I mean, they're turning their defense into offense, right? In transition. Now, of course, this is where your challenge comes in. We know in the postseason, that ain't how the postseason goes. You're not going to be getting these 18, 20-year runouts on. It doesn't work that way. Teams are better, half court, more of a game, right? And then when we get that half court set, how are we able to use our defense to that end? And that's where I think Triple J comes in. Last 3 games, he's had at least 5 blocks, which is absurd. And if you notice, Coach, in that Tuesday game against the Warriors, or was it Monday night, whatever night that game was, he picked up his 4th foul literally at the start of the 3rd quarter. So he sat the entire 4th quarter. Warriors went on their run. It was huge. He comes back into the game 4th quarter defensively over. Warriors score nothing at the rim. Grizzlies win that one, pull away at the end. His defense has gotten so much better, and we've seen it. He's not fouling as much anymore, right? You see the game is starting to slow down for him. And the next Grizzlies post game that I do with them, I'm going to ask him about what is he seeing defensively, because that's what the thing is to me that I'm seeing, Coach, is that defensively, I think the game is slowing down, and he's not just a jackrabbit like you always say with rookies, puppy dogs, and they're just pogo sticking everywhere. He's no. I know what's coming here. I can see what's coming. I can defend this, and it's huge for them.
Where is Jaren Jackson Jr. from? Like, where did he grow up?
So he's born in Plainfield. He played because his dad was playing at the time. So he's born in New Jersey, and then he played ball in the Midwest. I want to say Ohio-ish area, somewhere around there. I want to say.
Years ago when I had some really close friends who were running the franchise in Memphis, I wrote a memo from a coaching perspective. I put the memo in my book actually, but I also wrote up a marketing plan. Not because I'm any good at it, because I'm not. They certainly ignored it. But the whole plan it was called Me, We, which I took from Ali's famous quote about the Rumble in the Jungle. Because I don't think there's a franchise in the NBA that has a more symbiotic relationship than Memphis does with when they have players who are hard-nosed, tough motherfuckers who are okay playing in Memphis. I mean, Memphis is a lovely city, like many American cities. It's got its faults, got its great things, but there's a feel, you're in Memphis. Like when you go down, Beale Street, yeah. I've had a fucking amazing meal.
Oh, it's awesome.
In the pandemic. That's the first restaurant I ate indoors.
Oh, wow.
When things had finally let up, I ate up in the top of BB King's restaurant. Nice. Fucking one of the best meals of my life. In part because I haven't been to a restaurant indoors in a year. I ate there last spring. But there is a feel about that place. And so when you've got players that are fine with being in Memphis, maybe even for the long haul, just like we were talking about New Orleans earlier, they're struggling for that. John Morant is from Mississippi?
South Carolina, I think. Yep.
South Carolina, whatever. From the South.
Mm-hmm.
JJJ, they seem connected to that community.
They do.
And they're good with that. Their way they play, the style they play, they're disruptive defensively, to your point about deflections. Man, if you were a stock, their stock will be through the roof right now. Because they're going to be fucking amazing for a long time if they stay healthy. It's affairs, which is something they have to build depth to make sure they don't overplay these guys like Thibodeau did in New York and Chicago with Derek and Joakim and Wall. Man, they're going to be incredible. That's why I say Dallas, Memphis, get used to it because they're going to be incredible for a long time.
You know, it's so funny, Coach. I thought because Ja and Zion were the same draft class, I was like, okay. They got Triple J the year before they got Ja. It's going to be New Orleans and Memphis for the future of the Western Conference. Oh,
you're not wrong to think that. That's how good Zion is. You're not wrong to think that.
We talked about New Orleans at the start of the show. Ain't going to be them, right? No, but this Memphis team is coming. I like what I see. And you did something interesting where you talked about, all right, we're getting close to that Daryl Morey territory, right? I don't think they have a 5% chance of winning the title. And I need to look at 538's metrics. Devin, if you're there, look at 538 and see what they predict Memphis's chances are of winning the NBA title. I don't think they're at 5% yet. But Daryl's point is always, if you have a 5% chance, you go all in. They ain't quite there. But, Coach, you had a trade idea. You're like, well, because you know what they need. They need another wing player, right? Someone who can, like, score some buckets, who can defend, right? Like that. They need that for the postseason. And you had an interesting trade idea. I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so everyone's talking about who's going to get Jerami Grant, and including me, who's one of my all-time, he's my first real favorite player in the last 10 years, who I didn't know at all. I've never met Jerami. So I just love him so much, and I always have. And so as I'm thinking about, boy, where would I like to see him for him? I didn't mean to pick Memphis. I just thought, wait a second. Who can trade for Jerami and give him a prominent role on a contender? Well, they aren't a contender until they get him. And who can make a trade to make Detroit happy and not be worse afterwards, meaning the team that trades for Jerami, because you're losing so much. Well, I don't know that this trade works. I've got Zaire Williams, who is a lottery pick and a talented player for Memphis, coming out of Stanford, very talented guy who fits in just fine next to Cade Cunningham and all those guys in Detroit. They've got the Lakers first round pick, which probably ends up not being a lottery pick. And it might be lottery protected. I didn't look that up. Kyle Anderson is, his money runs out at the end of the year. Jarrett Culver is a former lottery pick, hasn't worked out. Honestly, I don't know if he'd work out in Detroit or not either. But if the Pistons could get a lottery type talent in Zaire Williams and the Lakers first, maybe that's not enough, but it's not like you're not going to get an all-star with Jerami Grant.
No.
But for the Grizzlies, Jarod, now they've got their death lineup because now they go Triple J at the 5, Jerami at the 4, with Ja, Dylan Brooks, and Bane in the postseason. That's how they finish fourth quarters.
Yes.
Pretty fucking good. All 5 shoot threes except for Triple J right now.
And that's how they switch. Right? Like that's how they switch defensively.
Oh, they'd be a beast defensively that way.
And Devin put in the chat. They are at 5%. Thank you, Devin, for getting that. So that's the Daryl Morey zone.
But they're not even all in. Like this isn't all in.
And that's not even all in. You're right.
Yeah, Zaire Williams, who's never really going to play a lot for them anyway. They've already got enough young guys. They've got enough guys. Bane's 23.
Yes.
Morant's 21, I think. Triple J's 22. They've got enough young guys. Not that I wouldn't like the Bulls should not trade Pat Williams, in my opinion. But Pat Williams started all last year as a 19-year-old. Zaire Williams is not going to be playing for a couple of years. Let him go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Get Jerami Grant. You've got this year and next year with them. Could always extend him if you want to. I think that 5% doubles. And Jerami Grant's got a ton of playoff experience.
Sure
the other guys don't. None of these guys, except for Steven Adams, who has a ton. Now you got 2 dudes with a ton of playoff experience. That matters. And he's a great guy.
I agree.
He's a great guy. He's not a spoiled guy. He's not a entitled guy. He fits in perfectly with that culture. I think it'd be fucking really good.
I will be calling Zach Kleiman immediately as soon as we get off this show to say this is the trade you should make.
Okay, we got a Pistons fan. Josh is saying he'd be okay with it too. If they can get something better, maybe they can.
because
Zaire's got some talent.
Zaire's got talent. And initially, Coach, when you dropped it in the chat or dropped it in the doc when we were prepping for the show, I got that feeling like, no, don't take any of my young guys. I'm keeping them all. But then I was like, well, but I think this could work. I think this could work.
You're supposed to have pause. If you don't have any pause, the trade's unfair.
Right.
Like it's supposed to hurt a little bit on both ends. I mean, like I said, the Bulls should not trade Pat Williams. I don't think anyway, because I think they could be trading a future All-Star. Zaire could be too, but we really can't contend. Right. We can't project that at all based on what we've seen because there's no time for him. Yes. When's there going to be time?
There isn't.
Yeah, so I think that could work for both teams.
Yeah, no, I like this deal, and we'll see. I think you do this. They're already the 3rd seed right now in the West, pulled ahead of Utah. They do this. Listen, in a first round, they're going to win a first round series, and then in that second round, whoever they're playing next, they're going to sweat, man. Like you're not going to be like, oh, Memphis, we'll beat them in 4 games. I don't think so, my friends. Like you might be down 2-1 or tied 2-2 and like, shit, man, we gotta, and really starting to sweat. So anyway, kudos to Memphis. Coach, I want to talk about the Warriors because something interesting happened this week. The great Warriors beat reporter Anthony Slater over the Athletic tweeted this out and has had a story to accompany it. And it was about James Wiseman. And he said that Wiseman had arthroscopic surgery on his knee in mid-December to relieve the swelling. He's advanced toward being cleared for contact, but that's what stalled the Warriors' return this last month. How is it that these injuries and these surgeries are being kept secret from all these enterprising reporters? All we heard was, he's got a little bit of a thing we're working on. And in December, I remember, or end of November, the thought was he was going to start ramping up then and be back on the floor very soon. Well, of course not. If you had arthroscopic surgery that month, no way you're getting back on the court that month. It's going to take you some more time to develop. And I'm just curious now, especially too, with the gambling aspect being heavily featured. I don't know if you guys watch League Pass, just about no matter what broadcast you're watching, what stream, every single team has some advertising about gambling in their commercial. It's here. So I'm wondering with the gambling aspect of it and keeping a level playing field and things being fair, how are all these injuries? We go back to Zion. No one knew about this until training camp, and it happened in the summer. Not a soul. I'm just wondering how these injuries are being kept secret and what these teams, I mean, I know why they don't want to tell people. It's to hold on to valuable information. What are you seeing, or what do you think about that whole situation?
I'll tell you what I think about it. I did not realize when you wrote the injury secrecy thing in our document that this is what you were talking about. I put that in separately. and then when I was starting to think, where should I put it in the document? And Jarod can always move it. I'm like, oh, Jarod's already on top of this thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that it's a challenge, but you said all the right things. So it's a challenge between league transparency to develop a trust with your audience and player privacy. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a doctor or a lawyer. I am a coach, only a coach. And I do care about players and very much on their side. I feel like there needs to be something where the team's got to talk to the player. Mm-hmm. If the player says, you know what, I don't want my business out there. They already know I'm not back. I think we need to respect that. But if they're like, fuck it, it is what it is. I think it's incumbent on teams to be honest. Mm-hmm, so a lawyer should speak more about it as to what's fair, because the gambling thing is a factor too.
Yep.
I'm always on the side of protecting the players and being transparent.
Yeah.
We've got to merge on that road, I think.
I'm with you there. It was just interesting. I was like, wow, it's amazing how December's not that long ago, but I mean, we get these tweets before they actually become public. So how is certain things not being put out there? But I think you're right. In order to create transparency with your audience, I think it's fair that we figure out what's right. Because I agree with you. If the player doesn't want stuff coming out, it shouldn't come out, right? But maybe it's a thing where the player says, whatever, undisclosed injury will be out for X amount of time. We'll reevaluate whenever.
And listen, I don't want to start a controversy about this, but the Woj bombs, it's just a team calling them on the phone and saying, hey, please release this.
Yeah, for sure.
Just working for the teams.
Exactly.
He's just releasing their statement. That's all.
Well, he's working for the teams.
Not investigating anything. He's
working for the teams and the league, right? The reason why he's able to get all that is because the league and the teams give him information and gems to put out. That's how this works. That's all. And Judy just dropped in. Gamblers don't have a right to protected medical information. That is true, Judy. Excellent point.
Yeah. Thank you, lawyer. Legal. Yeah.
So this is the part of the program where we anger our boss about his favorite team, the Portland Trailblazers. So it just came out that Damian Lillard's going to have surgery. I mean, Coach, what are we doing? Like, this season's over. We already know that, right? Like, it's a wrap. Like, but what are you? I mean, the management of everything. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Why didn't they come out with a statement saying, we thank Dame for his service, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. We want to move him to where he has to go. All the right things to say, right? But that's not what they're doing. They're still playing this weird game of Dame not wanting to come across as quote unquote a bad guy.
We talked about this and wrote about this at TrueHoop before the season. It's Mr. Miyagi. It's be on the left side of the road, be on the right side of the road, we'll be fine. Trade him, don't trade him, commit, done.
Fine.
That wiggle of the road shit, you're going to get squashed like you're agreed. And so Damian said, I'm not happy, blah, blah, blah. We reported that he had told people I want out, which I certainly stand by what we wrote. And then he came back and said, no, I want to be here, but not really. Like, they got to get better. And here we are. And so if we could rewind the clock, when we all love to do that, and wave that magic wand, Portland would realize, okay, I didn't predict they'd be 9 games below 500, whatever they are now. I thought they'd win 40 plus games. Well, they aren't doing that.
No.
But if they, in retrospect or in hindsight, they would definitely trade him.
Yeah.
And he would want to be traded. And now, because they were afraid to do and meanwhile they were investigating their GM.
Yeah.
Like, come on, this was a train wreck.
Yeah.
We saw months ago. They could have had Ben Simmons right now.
Yeah, could have for sure.
And it'd be great for Ben Simmons too, because he's not playing. So it's just, Masai fired Dwayne Casey, our friend, traded DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi for 1 year and got a ring.
Yeah.
Now, you got to get a little lucky, but you got to be bold.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing some teams just not willing to be bold at all.
I think you're right. The middle of the road, this ain't the game to play. Here's a player who ain't middle of the road. He's got star written all over him. Coach Thorpe's favorite player in the NBA right now, Scotty Barnes. What are you seeing from the Raptors rookie?
So what I put in here is, listen, I don't want to talk much about Scotty. He's great. He's not been played as well lately. He was with COVID. I don't know if he had COVID or just without for the protocols. What I want to talk about, though, is this guy, Samson Folk, broke down every play and really has this long, comprehensive look into everything he's done. And his ultimate analysis is this guy's going to be a very unique superstar. I don't think he's so unique, but I agree with him that he's going to be a superstar. And my point is, and you probably know this, I get a lot of people who text me or email me or even call me, how do I break into this business, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's how. Fucking work. Right? I was telling Henry yesterday, if anyone had spent the time I did watching him play last year, you would have had him ranked where I did as second, really in a coin flip with Mobley. Be impressed that I had Mobley number 1. Don't be impressed that I had Barnes number 2. I watched every minute of his games. I didn't watch all of Mobley's games because my son wasn't on that team. And the fact that I still projected number 1, that's good for me. I fucking worked for that. But this guy worked.
Yeah.
And if you want to really understand this game, you've got to watch lots and lots of film and study metrics and read articles and listen to podcasts and get knowledge that you didn't have the day before. And every day it's got to happen. So that's what I want to put in there is not so much about Scotty. It's just fucking work to learn this game.
Well, it's funny that you say that because it's going to lead into our midseason All-NBA discussion. Yeah. It's like the Draymond thing in the game against the Bucks last night. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
And my cousin loves the NBA is texting me like, he's like, Warriors getting smacked by whomever. And I was like, without Draymond, that matters a lot. Draymond, he only averages 8 points a game. I'm like, dude, it is easy to see the impact in raw counting stats, right? Anyone goes, oh, look at that, 30. No. When on offense, how he moves the ball, how he orchestrates the back, you can't quantify that. But that thing, that's how the Cuisinart works, right? As much as Steph Curry and all that, and then defensively, of course, just everything he does on that end of the floor. I'm not saying it would have made up for 35 points or whatever the game was, but it would have been vastly different, likely, than what it was last night.
Yeah.
All right, we're at the midway point. It is time. All NBAs. Coach, give us your first team.
This is first team?
First team.
You want my 5 guys?
Yep.
I've got the same as you. I'm willing to bet. Curry, Durant, LeBron, Giannis, Jokic.
Ooh, our first disagreement already.
Where?
Jokic, Giannis, KD, Curry. Listen, LeBron has been excellent. I dinged him just because the Lakers stink, and he's played a little less games. Chris Paul got my one spot there because the Suns are the best team in the league.
Suns are great. Yeah.
Someone's got to be on that first team for me. All right, second team. Who you got?
So I have Chris Paul, Fred VanVleet, James Harden, and so here's my controversy. If I have to go with power forward and center, I'd go Draymond at 4, and Embiid at 5.
Okay.
Do I need to do that? Do I not
have to? Yes. All NBA, you have to have one. I know it sucks. I hate how they do that, but you have to.
They play positionless basketball.
I know.
Why do we have to put positions on things?
Got to for all NBA.
Draymond, Embiid at 5.
All right, we got a little difference here. So all NBA center, Embiid, LeBron. I got DeRozan second team, Donovan Mitchell, Ja Morant.
That looks like my third team. I got Drew Holiday, Ja, Donovan, and I don't give a fuck about rules anymore. I went with DeRozan at 4 because he's got to be in there. And then I'm really torn between Cat and Rudy.
Oh,
Cat's had a phenomenal season.
Great basketball minds. We think alike. All right, third team: Fred VanVleet, Book, and Draymond. Those are my locks on my third team.
Yeah.
Now my other two guys, I was like, oh shit, Cat, Rudy, Jarod Allen. I was like, I don't know.
I know it's tough.
So that's my third. So my third team, I don't know who my two guys are between Jarod Allen, Cat, and Rudy. So two of those three are making it.
Between the two of us, I think we probably have 19 names for 15 spots. Yeah. And I think we're right because Booker, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you got to get him into VanVleet, been amazing. Those are the top 19 or so players in the league.
Yep. Yeah. All right, Coach, top fives. Who do you got?
Number 5, you're a Memphis Grizzlies.
I love it.
You haven't hired that?
Oh, yeah.
I can't argue with it. They're fantastic. But I got them number 5. Who's your number 5?
My number 5 is the Miami Heat.
See, I've got the Heat at number 4. I put it in our document. Last year, the only team that was top 5 in offense and defense was the Jazz. This year, there's none. There's only one team that's top 7 in both, and it's the Heat. Without Jimmy and Adebayo for a lot of games.
Yep.
So I've got them at number 4, and they're really going to come on strong, I think.
I think so.
So who's your 4?
All right. So my 4 is, as you mentioned, those Utah Jazz.
Okay. I've got the Warriors at 3 because they've got some injuries and Draymond being out. They've not played well lately. Curry's struggling. So I have them at 3.
3 for me, Memphis Grizzlies.
We're all pretty close to there. I've got the Jazz at 2. I think that when they don't have Rudy Gobert, they suck.
Oh, they are terrible without Rudy.
He's an MVP level player.
Holy hell, they're terrible without Rudy.
Yeah, they just can't replace that dude. You can't replace him. But when he's there, they're terrific. They have an amazing offense, and that's why they suck. Is without him, their defense isn't any good.
I'm with you there. 2 for me is the Golden State Warriors. Look, they're still playing well despite Steph's been a little bit of a prolonged slump here. Yeah. I think he's a little gassed too. Like at this point of the season, I think he's
tired. You're right.
He's a little tired, so they're gonna have to rest him a little bit. And then I think we both got Phoenix as number 1, right?
I don't put Milwaukee there because they just aren't a whole, but they're lurking. That's what we mentioned earlier.
Right
they're going to be right there. They know they're the Olympic gold medal winner that knows let's just play hard. We need to. Let's figure stuff out. Let's build our habits. Let's not panic. They'll be fine. Phoenix has been just super steady. They have a great record. They're just as advertised. They're going to be dangerous.
I like what Milwaukee is doing, Coach. They're like, but when the big teams come to town, we have to remind you. No, we are the defending champs. Yeah. So we're going to smack you.
And we got Giannis.
Yeah. So we're going to smack you just to remind you in case you forgot.
They're going to get better. Like I think they're going to get better as long as they get healthy. I think they're going to be better than last year. That's a big deal.
And that's scary.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
All right, folks, enjoy the basketball this weekend. Stay safe out there, and we will see you on Monday, Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, sir. We'll be here. Yep.